I'm Jana Besamuska. I'm an assistant professor at Utrecht University, and I'd like to share some thoughts with you about the project. And mainly I'm going to focus a little bit on basically the aims and the research objectives of this project. And give me one moment to share my screen. And there we go. All right. So I'm really excited to kick off this BARWAGE project, and I'm going to walk you through the project, the aims, etc. So first of all, about BARWAGE. So in the next 2 years, we want to look at the importance of collective bargaining for wage setting in the European Union. And this project is led by Utrecht University, and it's conducted in cooperation with the Centre European Labour Studies Institute, CELSI, the Fondazione Giuseppe Di Vittorio, FGV, and the Wage Indicator Foundation. And then we are super grateful for the support of the European Commission, who is funding this research, and to the Dutch Employers Association, AWVN, and the European Trade Union Institute, who are supporting the project with their expertise. And I'd like to add that I am very, very happy to see so many people here who are outside of this core project team, because what we'd really like to do today is discuss what we hope to get from this research. So what we would like to learn from the research we're doing, and how that can help social partners, governments, policymakers, etc. So you're very, very welcome here. And I hope that you will all also join in the conversation. About BARWAGE then. BARWAGE is going to be all about wage fixing through collective bargaining. And so it's going to be about how agreements on wages and pay found in collective agreements, like pay scale tables you see here, how they relate to the wages earned by workers in the European Union. And in the project, what we aim to do is to investigate the potential of collective bargaining as a tool for ensuring adequate minimum wages in the European Union. And so actually, thanks to major efforts by statistical bureaus and several large-scale surveys, we already know quite a lot about the wages that workers actually earn in the European Union. And we also know that quite a substantial share of those workers are covered by collective bargaining agreements, which we often then assume fix their wages. And yet we know actually surprisingly little about the shape of those pay scales through which these wages are supposedly fixed. So for example, how close do the wages earned by workers match the amounts negotiated in collective bargaining agreements? And does this vary across countries, industries, bargaining levels, or by gender? And so in short, what's bargaining got to do with it, right? And so the first aim of the BARWAGE project is to quantify the impact of wage bargaining on the setting of adequate minimum wages for EU workers across countries and sectors by bargaining level. And that means that we ask how sector and enterprise level bargaining help workers earn more or substantially more than the statutory minimum wage. So why does this matter? Well, imagine we have a lot of workers earning wages, and now we have a minimum wage that we set at that amount that many of our trade unions have been lobbying for, 14 euros an hour, right? So what happens to the wages? Do all these people now move to just above that minimum wage, or is there what we would call a larger bite of that minimum wage? So do people who earned 15 euro before now earn 20 euro? Right, and that is something that collectively bargained wages could potentially contribute to. And our question is, do they? And to learn more about how collective bargaining agreements contribute to this, we are going to dive into the texts of collective bargaining agreements and study the contents of these agreements to understand what they actually say about wage fixing. And therefore, the second aim of the project is going to be to determine to what extent and how collective bargaining agreements from 9 EU countries set wage levels and wage increases, and whether we can distinguish patterns by industry and bargaining level. To do so, we are going to code 400 collective bargaining agreements from Estonia, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, and Portugal, and we're going to add them to the wage indicator database, which already contains similar numbers of collective bargaining agreements from Austria, Spain, Italy, France, and the Netherlands. And this is the database that Pauline was talking about during the opening, and Gabriela will, after me, explain all about this database. And by including 100 collective agreements by countries, what we aim to do is to ensure that we can actually dig into differences within countries. That means by industrial sector or by bargaining level. And also by adding these 4 countries, we really strengthen the representation of Central Eastern European bargaining agreements in the database. And so what we'll try and look at is where these 900 collective agreements set wages and how. So what do these CBAs say about the level of wages? Are they discussed at all? Are they discussed at the sector or enterprise level or left to individual negotiations? And are wage increases included in a collective agreement? And if so, for example, are they negotiated in a way so as to reduce pay inequalities within the firm or the sector? And so we start looking at where can we find the wages. And for the third objective, we try and determine which wage setting arenas are important for wage setting in industries across the 9 EU countries in cases where we do not find those wages or those pay scales in collective agreements. And so what we do is we look at those collective agreements that actually did not include any pay scale tables. And we then use a combination of natural language processing techniques and online interviews to determine where wages are effectively set. So for example, it could be that there are no wages in this particular collective agreement that we're studying because those are included in an overlapping agreement, right? So for example, we are studying the sector level agreement, but those wages are set in the company level agreement. But it could also be that those wages are just not set through collective bargaining. As a fourth objective, we then want to see if collective bargaining agreements actually do include pay scales. For which workers do they set pay scales? And does this vary across industry and across country? And so for this work package, what we do is we look at the other half or the other set of the collective bargaining agreement, namely those that did include pay scale tables. And then we match microdata on wages to collective bargaining agreement pay scales and try to estimate how employees are distributed across the pay rates. For example, how large is the share of employees that effectively earns wages in accordance with wage floors set by the collective bargaining agreements? Or are pay rates still relevant and applicable in the more high-skilled occupations? And to dig a little bit deeper into this question, we'll also do 2 case studies in Italy and the Netherlands. Finally, our overarching research objective then is to determine to what extent wages are set through collective bargaining, broken down by country, industry, and bargaining level. And so this objective really summarizes the outcomes of the project. And we hope that we are able to use the findings from the first 4 research objectives to quantify the size of the national, sectoral, enterprise, and individual wage setting arenas. So that's what we're going to do. If you want to stay updated on the project, you can check out the project page where this presentation will be uploaded to as well. Subscribe to the Wage Indicator newsletters where we'll publish any news events. Follow the Wage Indicator channels on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. Or if you want to get more closely involved, reach out to myself or to Pauline. Thank you very much.